Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal 200-year winning streak. We're going to trace the extraordinary lineage of the Kandyan kings and how they managed to fend off three of the most powerful European empires of their time. It's an incredible story full of fierce resistance, brilliant military strategy, and ultimately, a pretty tragic internal collapse. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. The unconquered Kandyan kingdom. 2. The Donchur and Bolana victories. 3. The Randanila and Ganarua triumphs. 4. The Nayakar dynasty era. 5. The 1803 British invasion. And finally, 6. The fall of Kandy. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the unconquered Kandyan kingdom, and the foundation of this incredible defiance. So tracing our monarch's tree, we really have to start back in 1592 with rulers who valiantly stepped up to secure the realm. The late 16th century was a wild time of crucial power struggles, right as foreign powers were desperately trying to establish a foothold in the region. The Portuguese were actively trying to set up a puppet rule in the Kandyan kingdom. But this lineage of kings stepped in, fiercely resisting that Portuguese influence and protecting their sovereignty at all costs. Our story officially kicks off with King Wimalad Harmasoria I. He grabbed power in 1592, but get this, he wasn't actually the rightful heir to the throne. So, to legitimize his rule, he made a brilliant political move. He strategically married Princess Donna Katharina, who was also known as Kusamana Daivi, the daughter of a former ruler. This established a fierce, unified new dynasty in Kandy, and completely thwarted the Portuguese plans to install their own loyal subjects on the throne.
Moving on to Section 2, Donchur and Bolana victories, First Blood.
Now, to really cement his rule, King Wimalad Dharmasuriya I needed some massive wins, and boy did he get them. In 1594, he successfully crushed the Portuguese at the Battle of Donchur. Then, just 8 years later, in 1602, he secured another massive victory at the Battle of Bolana. These weren't just simple military wins, They were absolute statements of power, guaranteeing that the Portuguese-backed puppet queens and kings would never, ever take his throne.
Next up, Section 3, Randanila and Ganarua triumphs, which really represents the golden age of this resistance.
The royal succession eventually passes to King Senarath, and then to his fiercely anti-colonial son, King Rajasingha II. This guy took the throne in 1635 and ended up ruling the Kandyan kingdom the longest, all the way until 1687. And he acted with absolute determination. He didn't just want to protect Kandy, he wanted to push the borders and repel the Portuguese from the entire country completely. Just look at this track record. It's a series of 4 catastrophic consecutive defeats for the Portuguese: Donchur, Bolana, Randanila, and Ganarua. At Randanila in 1630, it was actually a young Rajasingha II, then known as Prince Maha Astana, who led the army to a devastating victory over General Constantino de Sa. And then at Ganarua in 1638, King Rajasingha II's forces totally surrounded the invading army of Captain General Diogo de Melo in a paddy field, launching a violent and victorious attack. In almost all of these battles, the commanding Portuguese captains actually lost their lives.
So you gotta wonder, how exactly does a mountain kingdom repeatedly crush a massive European empire? Well, their sweeping victories weren't just because of the rugged terrain. They relied heavily on brilliant strategic planning. When invasions happened, the kings would safely relocate, organize their armies, and then surround the Portuguese at strategic choke points. Plus, they had the absolute, unwavering support of their people. This popular support was so intense that it caused massive native defections. Local people who had been forced to march with the Portuguese would literally just switch sides and join the Kandyan king mid-battle.
Which brings us to Section 4, the Nayakar dynasty era, a shift in bloodlines. Fast forward a bit, Kings Wimalad Dharmasuriya II and Narendra Singha actually died without any direct heirs. Because of this, the crown passed to the Nayakar lineage, specifically the brothers of the queens. Starting with King Sri Vijayaraja Singha in 1739, these new rulers took the throne and remarkably maintained the kingdom's defiant stance. But the game was changing. The primary foreign threats were shifting away from the Portuguese and focusing instead on the heavily armed Dutch and eventually the British. You really have to note King Kirti Sri Rajasingha here. He ascended the throne when he was just 16 years old. He successfully outlasted a major 1765 Dutch invasion when the Dutch tried to flex their muscle over coastal trade. But beyond his military resilience, he's incredibly celebrated for actively reviving Buddhism in the kingdom. He did this by bringing the Upasampada, which is the crucial higher ordination for monks, all the way from Siam. All right, Section 5, the 1803 British invasion, or what we can call their final stand. By the late 18th century, the geopolitical chessboard shifts again. The English finally snatch coastal power from the Dutch and turn their sights directly on the ultimate prize, Kandy. In 1803, Governor Frederick North launches a major invasion. His strategy? It was an old playbook: install a puppet ruler. The British declared Prince Muthuswami as their chosen king. But history repeated itself. Because the actual Kandyan king, Sri Vikramarajasinghe, still had the full, unwavering backing of his people, the invasion failed completely. The British-backed prince ultimately lost his life. Which tragically leads us to Section 6, the fall of Kandy, the 1815 betrayal. This is the crucial turning point. Despite centuries of resistance against impossible odds, surviving invasions from the Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British, the kingdom collapses just 12 years after that failed 1803 invasion. The crucial difference here? A severe internal dispute between King Sri Vikramarajasinghe and Elapola, a very powerful elite in Kandy. This massive fracture caused the king to lose the support of his people. So, when the British invaded this time in 1815, they didn't face a fierce Kandyan army waiting to ambush them in a valley. They literally walked right into the city of Kandy, completely unopposed. The king had been entirely abandoned by his own people. It's a powerful illustration of a universal historical theme. A nation united can withstand the greatest external threats, but internal division will bring down even the most unconquerable kingdom. The king actually fled his palace and hid in a house in Metamahanawara, but it was his own people who caught him and handed him straight over to the English. On March 2, 1815, the British signed a treaty with the Kandyan elites known as the Udarata Givisuma, or the Kandyan Convention. With a simple stroke of a pen, the Kandyan kingdom was accepted as an area under English rule, officially ending the sovereign rule of the Kandyan kings forever. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder regarding the tragic, self-inflicted end of an otherwise unconquerable and highly defiant dynasty. For over 200 years, 3 different empires failed to conquer Kandy by force. Was the kingdom ultimately defeated by European might or by its own internal divisions? They withstood the greatest military forces of the globe for over 2 centuries, using brilliant tactics and fierce loyalty, only to lose it all the exact moment that loyalty fractured. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the history behind the facts.